This is the Louder Than 10 podcast, the school for people who run creative projects. We're building a community together with digital project managers, freelancers, and creative teams, and we need your help.
You can find us at louderthan10.com, on our Twitter feed at louderthan10, or on our Facebook page.
Today we have Dave Pryor in the house, the feature writer for our very first online magazine issue. Dave's an Agile consultant at SolutionsIQ, formerly known as Big Visible, and he travels the world 75% of the time, training other people how to create systems and workflows that work for them. Dave was actually grass-fed on project management. He has a master's in it. He's a speaker, writes for a ton of different online PM magazines and sites, and he actually taught the Girl Scouts how to be agile. So what are we going to cover? Well, what would you tell yourself as a brand new PM if you could go back right now? Dave tells us what it's like to use the mirrored approach. What does Aikido and social engineering have to do with project management? Learn how to fall and get back up again. Go home, you're drunk. How we tolerate sleep deprivation and its drugging effect more than alcoholism at work. And more on today's podcast.
Hey everybody.
Hey Dave, how's it going?
Good, how you guys doing?
Doing really good over here. So we wanted to welcome you. This is the first time we've had you on the show, but we've been trying to get you on
Scheduled
here
for a while. Yeah, I'm psyched to be here. Thanks for having me, and congratulations on the launch.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of it.
That was my pleasure.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, Dave, for the audience, Dave is an Agile coach. Would you call yourself
More of a trainer. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, so I've done Agile coaching. I still do a little bit, but most of my time is spent teaching people in classes, like teaching Scrum certification classes and stuff like that.
Do you like that better?
In some ways. I mean, I had a really hard time with Agile. It took me like 8 years, and it was really difficult to stop fighting it. So I like the coaching work, but on a sort of a personal mission thing, I feel like it's because I had so much trouble with it and I fought against it for so long. Any chance I have to get to spend time with people helping it suck a little bit less for them,
right.
That's sort of like a big deal to me. Because I think if you're teaching, you're always kind of speaking to a previous version of yourself, and I want to help the other version of me. So I love getting the chance to help other, especially project managers.
You have a unique way of teaching that I haven't seen a lot of trainers do in that sort of Scrum atmosphere, and it's a very active listening approach. And I know you've talked a lot about that with other people, but tell me what that means to you. Like, what does active listening do for when you're coaching?
So, I mean, in general, I think a lot of the Agile trainers do this stuff, and I'm barely at the beginning stages compared to some of the other ones. But for me, when I'm coaching or teaching and you're interacting with anybody, you're always trying to pay a lot of attention to what's going on. It takes a while, I think, to move out of the stage of I'm going to tell them what I feel and only care about pushing a message. But any kind of interaction with anybody else is a negotiation for information, for space, for all different kinds of things. So for that to work effectively, you have to pay a lot of attention to what they're saying, what they're not saying, body language, vocal tone. I mean, we've talked about the vocal stuff a lot in the past. And I think especially on the teaching side, when I first started teaching, I was just trying to push information at people. But after a while, it gets to be more like a performance. Because you're there to entertain people too. So you want it to be fun. You want it to keep them energized. I don't want to be one of those guys who comes in and just reads a bunch of slides and makes people do uncomfortable icebreakers. It should be fun. So, I have to find ways to make it hard and challenging for myself in each class, so it's not the same thing all the time. But I think if you pay a lot of attention to people, you see when people are nodding off or they're bored or they're uncomfortable, you try to react accordingly.
So you said you don't like to make people uncomfortable, but I do remember you telling me that there was this non-verbal teaching. And
I'm happy if people are uncomfortable.
You sat at your desk and ate someone's sandwich. Like that was the intro. Can you tell, or did I give it away? Is that
no?
okay?
I have I have a talk on reading and using body language, especially in meetings. So it's really more geared towards project managers who are going to be involved working closely with people. And the whole session is about how if you're in meetings with the same people you can start to learn about their tells. Like I had one guy who every time he lied, he would bang his fist on the table. So every time I saw his fist go down, I'm like, oh, he's lying. And this other guy was like kind of curling into himself like a turtle, and he was always trying to hide. And if you pay a lot of attention to stuff like that, you can use it to your advantage. So there's times when I really want to make somebody uncomfortable because I know it's going to throw them off their game. And in this particular session, they were all eating food. It was at a PMI event, and I walked up and sat down on one guy's desk, and I started eating his food too to see what was going to happen. So you can play with people's body language, your body language, play with their body language, and it's all part of that thing of the nonverbal communication stuff. I mean, you have to pay attention to it. If you're good at being a project manager, you have to learn how to become a really good social engineer and use that stuff, hopefully not in a negative way, but I mean, you have things you need to get done, and you want to be able to employ different tools to do it.
Mm-hmm. So you actually had to become pretty solid at reading body language. I was gonna ask if you could see anything from just our interaction. I mean,
other than the awkward with that, I haven't been watching. I've been looking at the camera, so I'm trying not to so I'm totally not doing anything that we're talking about right now.
Well, you're on the spot, so you get a free pass.
But I think so when I've seen you present, you're also really good at that too. I mean, you bring a certain energy to it, but you play to the room. And the more they react, the more you adjust. And I think that works on a one-on-one level as well as in a larger scale too. And I think it's really weird because generally I'm totally introverted. Like I don't ever want to go talk to people or interact with people. So in a way, I guess it alleviates some of the stress of that because it's not like, oh, I'm just going to be social. No, this is a game, and I'm trying to figure out how to beat people.
That's fascinating. So you're saying like you would describe yourself as a natural introvert, and I know like Sam Barnes, he calls himself that as well, and there's a lot of research floating around. So
and now it's really cool to be an introvert, which is kind of irritating. But.
Yeah, now it's like the thing to be. So that's awesome. So how do you end up in a position where you're giving all day long, and then like what
you grow up well so I think part of it is I used to play in bands a lot, and it's really weird, but when you figure out you're not going to be a rock star or whatever, you don't lose the desire to perform, but I do find that getting to teach and stuff, it kind of meets a lot of those same needs. I get to interact with different people all the time, work on different facets of what I'm trying to teach, and it's like you're doing a bit, like a comedy bit kind of, but you're always adjusting it. The problem is that at the end of the day, and there's some trainers who come away from a class and they're fully energized, like they feel really kind of pumped up and ready to go. I go back to the hotel and curl up in a ball in a corner and don't talk to anybody. Yeah, I sit there and play my guitar, and after about like 3 hours I can call my wife and talk to her. Like I'm up for that level of interaction. But it's a weird thing because a lot of places you go, people are like, hey, well, let's go out to dinner, and hey, let's do this. I'm like, no, I don't mean to be a dick, but I'm tired of talking to you, and I need to go be alone now. Yeah. You have to kind of let it. I think with the introvert becoming something that's popular and common, one of the good things is it's made it a little more okay to be socially weird that way. Mm-hmm. But there are plenty of times where you feel like obligated to do stuff, and you know that it's not a good thing, but I know that if I go out and do stuff after class, then I'm not going to be as good the next day. So I just try to push it all into that 8 hours.
Yeah, it's funny how those sorts of traits have finally kind of come up as being introverted or not, because like traditionally, like I think most people on the surface would consider Rachel to be the more extroverted person, and because I kind of tend to sit back and don't speak out as much usually in public situations, but really I think we're kind of opposite, because almost always I'm the one that's like, hey, let's go out, let's go see people, let's blah 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 after it, and Rachel's like, no, I'm done. I need some time in the hotel room alone, away from people for a little bit. And I'm like, what? Why? But
yeah, it's really weird. So like in my house, my wife is pretty introverted, and so is my daughter, and there's times where we'll all be home all day long in the same room and no one talks to one another, and we're all completely comfortable with that. So.
Well, that's okay then. If everyone's comfortable, you guys just kind of communicate telepathically.
Yeah, or we send each other emails while we're sitting on the couch next to each other or whatever. But.
I know we're on Slack. Probably
Slack each other.
it's probably 80% of our communication now is through Slack.
Wow.
It's very good at conflict resolution. I mean, you can solve.
Oh, all right. So I have a question for you guys. So for you guys, with the communication tools like that, I mean, are there other things that you're using now that are kind of different? And how is Slack different from just an old message board? What makes it unique?
Well, the GIFs are great. Have you?
I haven't done that part yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a nicely put together app, first of all, but I think it's nice to have the private room. Because if I go into like Messenger or Skype or something, I've got all kinds of contacts that are friends and family, and I always have to change my status to invisible just so I don't get bugged every 5 minutes.
Or you can be like me, I just never turn them on anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Slack, I know it's just the team.
Okay.
There's no expectation to respond right away or anything like that too. I feel it's like a mix between like text message, I guess. And
There's a camaraderie in there too. It's weird. I've never had that in any kind of iChat or Messenger or anything. Even group chats on Skype, because all you do is you just go @channel and then send the entire group something. You can send them a rainbow if you want, but yeah, heads ups and stuff are pretty.
Don't send me a rainbow.
I will maybe send you a rainbow. I'm going to test how introverted you are and see what you do. We're nice people.
I think the other part about Slack is that it is group by default. So whereas all the other ones are sort of one-on-one, and then you can go into a group chat, but it's sort of, it kind of feels more like a hangout, like everybody's just casually, they can throw in jokes here and there, or some random conversation. So I think it helps, especially for remote teams, to feel a little bit closer to each other, kind of project.
I'm glad that the tools are getting better at that than they used to be. So.
Yeah, we might have to like bump you on Slack, because I know we share a group somewhere in there.
And I haven't gone in, but see, that's even like at the end of the day of teaching, I'm like, I look at the message, I'm like, I don't know. I guess sometimes it's just you kind of wear yourself out. You have to know when to stop.
Yeah, and do you ever?
Good.
I was going to ask you if you get a weird feeling sometimes where you haven't been partaking enough, and so you feel guilty jumping in and then being like, I can't stick around long enough to hear what you're going to say.
I just feel guilty about not joining in. Like I feel obligated to, like I'm letting people down. And like on Slack, Carson posted something the other day that was really nice, and I haven't responded, and it's been sitting in the back of my head like, God, I'm such a dick. I really need to go. And it's not that I don't appreciate it, not that I don't want to, but I'm sort of getting to the point where I'm giving myself more permission to be a little more of a hermit once in a while when I need to.
I think you earned it, because I think, so how much of the time are you actually traveling? Like, I know you said you're barely home, what?
95% about.
95?
No, 75.
Oh, 75. I was like, that's a lot. But 75 is still a lot.
Yeah, well, it's a lot unless it used to be 100. If it used to be 100, 75 is like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, actually, it's an improvement.
It's weird, though, because like when, you know that movie Up in the Air a couple years ago when that came out, the one about George Clooney where he was flying all the time?
Yeah.
The commercials. And my wife's like, this is hysterical. You have to watch this commercial. And I'm watching. I'm like, there's nothing funny in that commercial. That's exactly right. Like, never get in line behind these kind of people in the airport. You get really weird when you travel a lot, and tiny little things become huge. So
what's huge for you? What's the thing that destroys you at the airport and travel?
Now that I said that, I'm not going to be able to think of anything. I guess for me, it's like if they won't let me put my guitar in the closet, if they make me put it in the overhead and some guy puts a suitcase on top of it. It's stuff like that. I know, really abhorrent things, but they're such like first world problems, and if like that's the biggest complaint you have all day, you should not.
You probably got a pretty good system, though, for getting into the plane, off the plane, through security, all of that. Do you have any like tricks or tips?
Don't travel with other people.
That's a good one.
Because if I go into the airport and my wife and my daughter go one way, and I'm like, no, we have to go this way now and do this thing in this order, because your OCD gets kind of amped up. So
yeah.
So you're an introvert. Are you a patient introvert?
No, not at all. But I guess it's the same thing with a lot of stuff, and teaching it is too. If you can become really present with the weird stuff that happens and be more aware of it, and like, wow, I'm really irritated right now because this totally stupid, useless thing is happening, and why, and you get a better sense of it. Or if you're uncomfortable, like if you're interacting with somebody one-on-one in a conflict situation on a project, if you can become more present of, gosh, this feels really bad, I don't want to be in this moment right now, it's why and what am I going to do about it, you can kind of start to hack yourself a little, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is, I mean, going back to the airports, I'm always this pushy. I'm like, come on, let's go, run to and like, I'll be looking at like all the people in front of us and like the security lines, and like if someone's wearing a lot of accessories or like
and they
really
don't take them off
boots
until they get up there.
Yeah. And then I'm like, no, we're not going in this line. No. And I know it's terrible because we get through and we'll probably still have a half an hour to sit there. But you know, because you leave like 3 hours early just because, right?
Yeah.
It brings out the worst in us, but
the best actually, right, Dave?
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, all those people that are in there, I'm always surprised when people are like, what do you mean I can't bring a bottle of water through the scanner and a knife? Like it's their first flight ever, but you know,
they should
try to remember that they're all doing their very best. Like, and if their very best kind of sucks for you, it's probably more your problem.
You gotta reach into the bottom of yourself, pull all the patients out, and just wrap them around every one of those senior citizens in the line.
It's true. It's totally not their fault because those rules are ridiculous most of the time. Like the water thing, it doesn't make any logical sense for anybody who is pretty new at it, and just because we've done it 100 times, we just get irritated that they don't know. But we've been, it's.
Yeah, I always want to say it's like I try really hard not to be judgmental, but then there's sometimes I'm like, I'm not judging that or that, but that's just flat out wrong.
You can never do that again.
Like the people that don't wash their hands when they go to the bathroom, that's just wrong.
Does that happen a lot?
At the men's room, it happens a lot.
Oh, it happens way too much. Yeah.
Even today, even with all the knowledge we have about all of the bacteria things.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
And do you
think about that the next time you shake hands with somebody?
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Or touch a doorknob.
So Dave, I wanted to ask you, we're talking a lot about like kind of looking at your situation and relaxing into that discomfort level. And I know a lot of the stuff that you've been training people on is kind of moving through these we're not just talking about sprints and stories and story points and things like that. We're talking about understanding how that person relates to everybody else in the room. So can we talk a little bit about your latest kind of project, your personal agility canvas?
I'd love to.
Let us know where
it came from?
Yeah,
so
where the history came from,
I mentioned that. I mean, I literally fought against Agile. I worked on an Agile project in like 1997, 98, and it went really, really bad. And so I spent about 8 years fighting against having to do it. I really didn't want anything to do with it. And the journey towards where I am now was really long and really difficult. And there were a lot of different reasons for it, but it's been a struggle. And I come from a PMP background. Like I used to teach PMP certification. I have a master's degree in project management. So when I walk into a room full of Agilists, it's like I have this scarlet letter. And I'm ashamed of it and proud of it. Like when I go to the trainer retreats, I have a friend, Michelle Goldenberg from Brazil, who makes me a little tag that says F and PMP that I have to wear everywhere. So I'm ashamed and I'm proud at the same time. And I was at one of these conferences, and one of the other trainers was saying, this idiot in my class asked me if he was agile enough. What a stupid question. Who would ever ask that? I'm like, every day. Every time I'm in any situation, I'm trying to figure out, I'm always second-guessing myself, because when your brain gets wired like a project manager, you can't undo that. You see everything that way. So I always have to wait for the Agile filter to kick in on top of the project management. And I was thinking about it, and there were some people that I was working with, and I was trying to help them come up with a way of gauging kind of how agile they really were, and to do some goal setting and to try to figure out what state they wanted to get to. And so that's where the personal agility canvas came from. and it's gone through a bunch of iterations. A lot of people that I've shown it to have helped me kind of move away from my own natural inclination and just make it all about bad stuff. So there's some good stuff in there too, but it's meant to be a tool to help an individual figure out for themselves, like, what does it mean for them to be agile? What state do they want to get to? What are the things working for and against them, and come up with a tactical plan to be able to get there. And when I do it in the workshops, at the end of the workshop, everybody has to pair up with another person. And the idea is like if Travis and I, if we were paired up, then each of us would commit to the other one. This is what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it, and we would have to check in. So it would be your job to follow up with me. So it kind of meant to be a little bit of a guilt push, like, because I did it with a guy and I avoided him for a whole year. And when I this was on another kind of project, but I made a commitment to him and I said, I will tell you when I've read these 3 books. It took me a year to finish them instead of a month. And when I finally finished them, I immediately called him and I'm like, Jesse, I finished this stuff. And he's like, what are you talking about? So the fact that he forgot didn't matter because I felt so bad about it and I had to work to avoid the guy for a year.
Wow.
But it really motivated me. And maybe it's just a dysfunctional Catholic upbringing, but it's a strong thing. So I think the canvas helps, and there's also sort of a preliminary tool that I use that comes from the Art of War to help people get their heads in the right space. And the commitment thing at the end is huge because you need somebody to help you stay honest. So
I think you've referenced the Art of War almost every time we talk, and I'm wondering, like, what is it about that book? I mean, I know it's a great book, but what is it for you that you think sort of is that pivot point for everything?
When I started to, I'd read the book in high school and college again, and when I started to use it professionally, it was because I was getting thrown under the bus. I was just trying to find a way to protect myself. But the more that I dug into it, the more I got past the surface level. Like, when you start to look at it, you start to see it as very conflict-oriented. But when you get past that and you realize it's really more about preparation and like, people always show the Bruce Lee video where Bruce Lee's like, oh, be like water. That comes from the Art of War. And the idea is that every interaction you have is a negotiation, and you're not going to win every one. So you have to know when you need to walk away, and you have to be flexible and adaptable, and that's the way to be successful. And so it started out as a way to protect myself, and it became something that allows me, or helps me, I guess, to remember to adapt and find different ways to adapt and different things to look at. So I don't know, I'm just sort of a big student of the book. It's really resonated with me.
Yes, you've kind of applied it to your entire life, the way you teach and coach and support people.
Everywhere except with my wife, yeah.
Well,
doesn't work with your spouse.
75% of the time. It's
Yeah.
So you are also in Aikido, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not. We don't have anything to do with Aikido.
Okay.
But I'll tell you about the article. You want to tell me about that?
Yeah. Where does that come from?
There's a bunch of guys in Agile that talk about Shuhari. And Shuhari, they always talk about it coming from Aikido. And I didn't want to talk about Shuhari because I only knew about it from Agile guys, and it seemed a little weird. But I do practice, I lead a Zen group in Oklahoma, and we practice at an Aikido studio. So I sat down with the guy that runs it and one of the students, and I asked him a whole bunch of questions. And one of the first things I asked Nick Lowry was, like, how can I learn about this? He said, go read these 2 books. And I read the 2 books. I guess he gave me 1 book, and he had just written one, so I read them both. And neither one of them said anything about Shuhari at all, which I think may have been sort of the point. But it did bring up that whole idea of the uke and the different roles, and how in Aikido, the first thing you learn to do is fall down, which I thought, wow, that's genius. Like, why don't we teach that to project managers so they're less scared of it? And then the whole thing about, if you're sparring, your first responsibility is to care for your opponent. And that also was like, damn, I really wish I could go back and have somebody teach me that way, because I didn't have anything like that. And it's something that I'm trying to employ with other people now as much as I can. I think if you're mentoring, you really have to take care of the other person. But the whole idea about teaching people to fail, there's so much terrible fear of failure people avoid it, and it's actually kind of a great thing when it happens. I mean, it sucks, but it opens up a whole new set of opportunities to learn from, to get better, and I would really love it if we could evolve to a point where there's less shame in the failure or less terror of it. Mm-hmm. But so I don't really have, other than watching the guys practice.
You're still an Aikido master because you've learned to apply the techniques in a different field. To me, it's pretty good.
I didn't want to talk about one thing without understanding it. So before I wrote the article, I did have two of the Aikido guys look at it and the stuff in it. So hopefully it's somewhat accurate. But I would be in dangerous water if I started talking about myself as being solid on Aikido.
I guess we don't.
And I still don't talk about shuhari. Like, I know what it means, but I don't talk about it because I don't have that level of comfort. I get really freaked out when people talk about a topic and only quote other people or only cite other references. Like, I think all of us have an obligation to learn about it deep enough to make it our own. So
makes sense. So what would today Dave say to initial starting out as a PM Dave?
Stop.
Can't say stop.
You're committed.
Unless it's back to the future.
Just enough to continue.
So what advice would I give myself?
Yeah, how would you help yourself fall better?
To let go of the idea of control. It took me a little while a couple of years to figure that out, that I wasn't in control and that I wasn't supposed to be. It took me a little while to figure out, probably a year or two to figure out how important it was to take care of the people on the team first. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that's always been a problem is and I don't know if this will ever go away, but I think you run across, you guys probably have this occasionally too, like a client or an individual that they're just like the worst thing in the world, and there's nothing you can do. And no matter how hard you try to get out of your own way, like everything they do, you're just like, And in the past, I used to react pretty quick to those situations, and I would be happy to just dive into the anger pool and just splash water everywhere I could, thinking like, I'm right, they're wrong, they're an idiot, Hopefully now I'm a little more conscious of the fact that I'm an idiot. And I guess if I could go back in time, that would be the one thing I would tell myself. Two things. One, it's going to be okay. And two, you're a complete moron. And I think if you can kind of approach everything like that, like, I don't know what I'm doing and everything's going to work out no matter what happens, then you're probably okay.
That's cool. Because you talk, I mean, a lot of what you cover in the article talks about this idea of a mirror too, right? Like teaching someone else to fall is like presenting a mirror for them to show them what they need to work on the most. So have you been able to kind of use that in terms of when you have discomfort about something new? Because I know you mentioned that being like a thing that anytime there's something new, you're like, oh, I don't know if I trust this thing.
Well, yeah, I'm very skeptical. I think there's two sides to it. On the side of the coaches, that's something like a good Agile coach would always do. Like, that's their role. It's not to tell you what to do or how to do Agile. Their job is really to help you figure out the best way for you to do Agile. So they're kind of trying to help you discover your goals. And I try to do that, but it's one of the reasons I'm not a full-time coach. Like, I want to be able to play that role for people, but there's a certain point at which I'm like, no, stop it. Do it this way, because that's just dumb what you're doing. So I know that I have limitations there. When I did like the personal Kanban project, I got somebody to act as my mirror. He was my coach, Brian Bizzuto. And we had this weird discussion in the beginning. He's a really smart guy, and I felt really fortunate that he was willing to do it. But he said, why do you want me to do this? You already know how to do this stuff. And I said, I know, but I know I'm going to cheat, and I need somebody to keep me honest and to be my mirror. So I think professionally as PMs or people who work in this space, anytime we can find somebody who we trust enough or don't know well enough, that they're going to have no qualms about calling bullshit on whatever we do without trying to hurt us, like it has to be well-intentioned. I think somebody will work towards your favor, but that we're all our own worst enemy, and none of us can see how we're doing that to ourselves. We're all sort of trying to con ourselves all the time. So to have somebody who will call you out on stuff on a professional level is really awesome. And Boz made me do a bunch of stuff that made me feel really weird and uncomfortable, but showed me things that I couldn't see. And they were like huge things. So it was a big deal.
What kinds of things? Like, do you remember any of the things that he pointed out?
The main thing was the happiness tracker. So he made me, we were talking about prioritizing work, and on a personal level, how I have so many things I want to do and I can't figure out, how to cut them off. And so he made me use this app called Happiness Tracker that pings you several times a day. Like, what are you doing? How do you feel about it? The really weird thing is, like, what are you doing? One of the options is making love. Like, I'm going to stop making love to enter a survey. Like, that would be, but it wants you to get a sense of what's going on in your life and how you feel about it. And so I'm doing it. I'm thinking, this is really dumb. But the thing that it taught me that I don't think the app intended or Boz intended wasn't about personal Kanban or tasks or anything like that. But I did figure out that all the stuff that I have to do and all the things that I feel pressured to do, they're all really cool things. And I'm really psyched to be able to do and it's like a privilege to be able to have all those things to do. So I don't have like crappy stuff. And realizing that it sort of was the beginning steps of me saying, I'm actually a lot happier than I would have guessed that I was. And I'm trying to work towards a point where even when I feel overburdened, like you were asking, you're so busy. I'm like, yeah, I'm so busy. It's my own fault, though, that I'm so busy because I make these choices. And I want to get to a point where I take more ownership of them. And I think it goes back to that thing you asked about a few minutes ago with, like, if I could go back and tell myself to be less quick to be angry at stuff. Everything that's going wrong is I'm the architect of it. And at the DPM conference, totally spacing on his name, the guy with the beard.
Montero?
Yeah. When he put up that slide that said, everything that's wrong is your fault, I was like, damn. Yes, exactly. It is all my fault. So what part of what I got from Boz coaching me was realizing that there's no victim. Like, we always feel like the victim. We always feel put upon, but we're not. We're the ones who create the situation. So we have to take more ownership of it. Anyway, I don't really think I answered the question, but
I think we can dive in even deeper. I think so. First of all, it's extremely scary to have to be aware that we are in control in a way, even though we have to let go of the control, right?
Yeah.
Everything that happens is because we've set it up that way. Like, I know this morning, I think I was complaining about all the things I had to do, and I'm like, well, I kind of said that I would.
Yeah, exactly. You put yourself in that situation, so suck it up. Right.
Suck it up, Buttercup. But actually, the thing we should actually summarize this project that you took on, and I can't remember how long were you committing to do this.
It was supposed to be like 6 months, but it ended up being like almost a year.
Like a full year. So so just frame it so our audience knows.
Yeah, I wanted to learn more about Kanban. So people in class, like, I want to work on an Agile project, I don't have a way to do one. You can do all the Agile stuff outside of work. And I wanted to learn about Kanban, and I'd read up on it, but I didn't have a Kanban project. I thought, well, an easy way at least to get some of it done, I could start trying to do personal Kanban. So I read Jim Benson's book and a couple other books, and I started to do it, and I got a coach. And the whole idea is it's sort of like a productivity tool, something kind of like getting things done, which I've never been able to do. But what I found really awesome about it was it's not, if you do it long enough and you do it with the right intention, it's not about getting things across the board and moving them into the done column as much as it is learning more about how you work and what choices you make and why you make them. So it goes back to that I'm taking responsibility thing. I'm trying to be more aware. Like, I realized I have things I have to do every day for, like, mental, emotional hygiene or whatever. And I always let those things go till the end of the day because work seems more important. But by not doing them, it makes it harder for me to work. So I realized I had to prioritize some of that stuff early on in the day. And I think, if you feel like you have too much to do in the morning, that's normal. I mean, I still feel like that all the time, but I'm a lot more aware of how I am the one who puts those situations into motion, and that makes it easier for me, I think, to let go of the stress, and also easier to change my mind about stuff and say, well, yeah, I'm actually not going to do that one thing.
Do you feel like you've gotten better at that then over the last year? Like, I know it was a struggle. I read all of those posts, and I remember seeing like, well, no, things are going really good, but now I've learned that if I push myself really hard one day, I don't do it the next day, and I can resonate with that. You probably
It has. It's gotten better, yeah. Like I was thinking that, like when I teach now, I don't plan to do work at night because whenever I do, not only do I not do it, but I feel crappy about the fact that I didn't do it. And if I do work on it, it's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, giving yourself permission to just like flake out is a big deal, and it's part of that. So I have gotten better at that. I'm still committed to more than I should be, but they're all things I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not committed to anything bad. It's just that I can't provide the level of engagement all the time that I want to. That's hard. That I'm still working on. But so much of it, I guess, is wrapped up in the sense of like obligation and guilt that, you know, is part of my own dysfunction. We all bring our own mess to the table, but the more aware of it you become, or I don't know. I can't say it's better. I obsess about it more. I think about it more.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's better or not, I don't know. But I do spend more time napping and reading comic books than I used to, so I would say that's positive.
Good.
That is good. It probably feeds a lot of that creative energy, because I think we were talking a little bit about sleep deprivation before.
Yeah.
And so I read this research that had been conducted by the U.S. Air Force. I thought it was in the
micro naps?
It was either the 50s or the 80s, but they're talking about how just even 1 hour of sleep loss per night for 1 week gives you the equivalent of 0.1%, what's the word I'm looking for? Like your compromise.
Alcohol.
Like the equivalent
level.
blood alcohol level. So you function like a drunk person if you lose an hour of sleep a night.
I'm basically like a chronic alcoholic.
Yeah. And so there's this fascinating idea around that, because it's okay for us to be sleepy at work, and we're talking all the time about how hard we work, and it's that cult of busy, right? That's what people say. But all of a sudden it's like, well, if you're actually drunk, that's not okay. So why are we so okay with and tolerant with that, and not tolerant with any other kind of abuse, right?
That's such a bigger question. There's so many weird things like that. Like, why do we feel obligated to say we'll do things we can't do at work because somebody signed a contract? We're messed up.
We are messed up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with the sleep deprivation, it's bad, and I know it's bad, and that is one thing that I'm trying to actively trying to work on. But I was talking to a friend of mine one time, and he's like, you know, I'm only on the earth for a limited amount of time, and he's just as bad as I am.
Yeah.
I'm only here for a limited amount of time, and there's a lot of things I want to do, and that was totally it for me. Like when I was in grad school and working full time, I was up till 2 o'clock every night thinking, God, I can't wait till this is over. There's so many things I want to do at this time. And so, yeah, I mean, now I'm happy to do that. And part of it, I think that what you touched on was, you know, we're in an office and we feel like we have to be productive all day, and you can't. And if we were smart about it, we'd all go take a nap in the middle of the day, because almost everybody needs that. Mm-hmm. I think on the one hand, I should probably file sleep bankruptcy. On the other hand, everybody needs different stuff. You know, what's motivating for one might be better for, I don't know, different for another person.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm kind of like you in that way, where like I probably get an average of 6 hours of sleep a night. Typically, like I go to bed at 2 o'clock usually, and I'm up by 8, kind of running around kind of thing. But I feel good. I feel pretty energetic, and there's some days where it's a slog, but it's just the things that I'm usually doing in those hours. It's not an obligation. I usually do it because I want to. And whether it's our own stuff or just, I don't know, playing music or whatever it is, you know, it kind of
have to make time for that energy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, to a certain extent, it's as important as sleep. I could try to sleep more, but then I'd be miserable because I never played my guitar or, you know, whatever. We have to balance our work and professional life. You know, even if you like what you do, you need different things to keep you engaged and energized. And I guess that's been a weird journey, I think, to being somebody who works at home or works from home, like when I'm not traveling. there's all that stuff about you should set up an office, you should get dressed up, you should have office hours. I'm like, no, screw that. I should just get up when I get up and go do stuff, and when I get stupid and sleepy, go take a nap. Because if you're engaged and you love what you do, the biggest problem for me when I started working from home was I worked all the time. I never stopped. So.
And you have an endless number of tasks that you could do. So.
Right. Yeah, and you have to give yourself a little more freedom. One thing at that conference that was funny was after the Kanban talk, one woman came up and thanked me for saying it was okay to take naps. Well, that's really cool.
And she promptly went to go take a nap.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we need to cut ourselves a little more slack.
Okay, Dave, imagine this right now. Tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. 3 days, your entire schedule is clear. None of those to-dos are there. What are you gonna do?
Well, I'm going to fill them up with stuff, because all the stuff I have to do is stuff I want to do. Like I wanted, but it's not necessarily, well, some of it's work. Like I've got some blog stuff I have to post. And I want to play video games with my kid, and I want to go to the comic book store with my kid, and I want to go out to dinner with my wife, and things like that. So those are things that a lot of people don't track, and you don't have to track them. But I have to track them, because if I know that if I don't do them. I let work get in the way. So for me, one of the things I learned from Kanban was if I don't include everything, I end up hurting myself. Yeah, so I have to give as much value to the personal things.
Yeah, you mentioned that, like actually marking, go to the comic book store, spend time. Yeah, that actually is
read a book for half an hour a day. Like that's on my board every day. Yeah.
But it's good, right? It jogs your memory, and then seeing it in a physical space means it takes up emotional space. It takes up a priority in your life, and you're saying that I am moving this.
The priority is important. Yeah, the prioritization for me is important because it gives it as much value as the work stuff. So meditating for a half an hour a day, that's as important as anything else that I'm going to do. Maybe the most important thing that I do every day. But if I don't put it down, I might let it go. So it's a way of trying to keep myself honest.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I've been meaning to meditate for probably about a year now. I even have an app for it.
Put it on your list.
I know. It's got to go on.
There you go. Yeah, put it on your board.
I use one called To Do, like French, spelled French. And it seems to be kind of like a Kanban. It's got the idea of like don't put more than 3 to 5 things. And I'm learning really, really, well now that you can accomplish 3 to 5 things a day, and that's it. But
right. I'm still trying to learn that too. I'm not good at that.
That is a tough thing. It makes me think about this book, and I wanted to actually ask you about this book. Trav, you finished it. It's called The Magic Art of Tidying.
Yeah.
And it's by Maria Kondo. So she's this Japanese woman who has kind of perfected this art of tidying. So what's your initial take on the book? Like, tell us.
So for me, I love it because I hate having a bunch of shit lying around the house and everything else like that. Like, clutter drives me nuts, even though my desk is a mess all the time. But it basically tells you to go through every object in your house and pick it up, hold it in your hands, and ask yourself, does this bring me joy? And it's super cheesy, but everything that doesn't meet either that or it's something you need on a day-to-day basis, everything that doesn't meet those, you got to chuck. Get rid of it, donate it, whatever. And so for me, it's kind of nice. You sort of clear away all the garbage, all the distractions. It feels like a little more, it's a kind of a hippy-dippy way to look at things.
I don't think it is. I'm doing that slowly with the room that I'm in, but it's taken me a long time to get around to it. I filled up about 2 trash bags worth of stuff in one day, and then I was just like, I'm going to take a break. I think, in principle, I love the idea of it. The one place where I learned a hard lesson was when my wife and I lived in New York. When we moved into Manhattan, we lived outside. We moved into the city. We had a really small apartment, so we had all our books in the storage place. We're like, this is a stupid expense. We should just sell all these books. So we took all the books to the used bookstore, sold them all, saved a bunch of money, and over the next 3 years, we bought back every single book So we ended up spending way more money because it was like there was I read this book 20 years ago. I don't need it. It's just a book. Like, why would it? But you have an emotional connection, and I guess the joy thing or the emotional tie to it, that becomes a big deal. Like, you have to figure out what burden you're willing to carry.
Yeah.
It's not just throwing away everything that seems like, I've used this, but it's actually.
But again,
connection. So.
But if you do throw it away and you do miss it, you're at that point then where you have to acknowledge, like, well, I decided that my fourth child wasn't really that important to me. I put it by the curb, and now I'm like, damn, who's going to mow the lawn?
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. And at that point, you just have to teach the dog how to mow the lawn. I don't know. It gets...
Right, exactly. But I mean, it's I think the responsibility thing we have. That's sort of like one of my focuses now is that people don't take responsibility for their capacity to do stuff, for the choices that they make. They're always the victim. Oh, I don't have it. Oh, I had to get rid of it because I did that stupid system. You chose to do the system. You chose to get rid of it. So too bad for you.
I was wondering if we could apply that same principle. So the idea of holding something like task in your mind, presence, and then saying, does this task bring me joy? Is this something that I'm doing because I have to do it, I want to do it, or I owe someone
for work
else?
Or for home?
Well, I think it could be applied to work. I mean, it would get you closer to, not you, but like people closer to doing things that made them more happy. And I know that sometimes you just got to slog and you got to do things you don't like to do. But if you had to choose this over that, right, in a Kanban way, you maybe narrow it down.
There's a whole thing in nonviolent communication about not doing anything that doesn't bring you the level of joy of a 5-year-old feeding a group of ducks.
That's amazing.
Which on surface sounds really great. Like, people say, well, yeah, if I'm doing that, I'm not going to do anything that doesn't bring me that level of joy. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. So basically you're deferring everything that isn't going to bring you that level of joy. You're pushing it off on someone else. Well, nobody really wants to scoop the cat litter.
No.
Like, that's not anybody's like, damn, right? But somebody's got to do that crappy job. And if nobody does it, that's never going to get cleaned up. So I like that, and I also...
I think there's still that important component of necessity. There's things you have to do, and there's there's objects that you need. A spatula is not going to give you joy.
Here's some toilet paper. How much joy does this bring me?
How much?
So I think that's still with the task too. There's terrible stuff that you need to do, but it's just making sure that there are some things in there that kind of make it worthwhile.
Well, I think one of the things that when I've talked to the NBC people about it, like I talked to Judith Lasser about it, she said, well, you might not really care about the cat litter, but you want a house that doesn't smell like poop, right? I'm like, well, yeah, that would be important. So, I guess it's framing it maybe. But
that's pretty important. So, I think Girl Scouts are pretty good at joy. They get a lot of joy out of doing things, and I think you actually ran through a Kanban experiment with them, didn't you?
Yeah. So my wife and I taught Kanban, and then we taught Scrum certification to a troop of Girl Scouts.
And that was all about this.
Super cool. So my daughter's a Girl Scout. My wife is a troop leader, and we got permission to teach a Kanban class. So we had all the kids come in, and we taught them how to make personal Kanban boards. And I think the coolest thing that I learned, there were two really cool things I learned that day. One was you don't have to teach kids to be self-organizing. Like, they just do that. It's only after we teach them waterfall that they stop being self-organizing. Then they're like, screw you, I'm going to get mine. So we put that dysfunction into the system. So these kids were doing projects together, doing work, and the other thing that was really neat was this one girl was like, all of a sudden, she's like, I'm starving to death, and she like collapses on the floor. And all the girls stopped what they were doing, and they came over, and the girl wanted to eat lunch, but they couldn't eat lunch because it was on their task board, and they couldn't move it into doing until they got something else out. So all the girls swarmed together and helped to finish the thing so that lunch could be brought in. And we didn't tell them to do that, but like, you do have to tell adults, like, stop what you're doing, go help the person in need. So it was a big kind of eye-opening thing for me, like, wow, we screw all these kids up, like, maybe we can inoculate them against this command and control way of working.
Amazing.
So it was a really neat thing. And then we went back and we taught them Scrum. And I think, as far as I know, I'm the person that has helped certify the youngest Scrum Master ever. She was 13 years old. So you have to, it's hard because you have to find a way to get these kids context for all the stuff that they learn. But it was really a really great time. And I think they had fun too. And a lot of them have used it to go on to get their Gold Award, which is like in the Girl Scouts, the Gold Award is like the Eagle Scout for Boy Scouts. So they've all used that stuff to get their award. So it's been pretty neat.
So they're going to have those skills for the rest of their lives, and they're probably going to approach most of the problems they encounter with this idea of, well, I got to keep pushing through the workflow, so I'm never going to stall out.
Hopefully. I mean, who knows? I'm sure there will be waterfall people in their path some way, but hopefully they'll find a way around it.
I feel like people do. I feel like they always find a way around that. You know, even
I hope so. But if they don't, that's okay, because it's more work for the rest of us. So
yeah, that's true. Then you can go traveling more.
Yeah. More time in the airport. Yay.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Dave, I am so pumped that you got a chance to sit down with us, that we got a chance to talk. And
oh, this was great. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope you can come visit Vancouver. I was sending you pictures to try to entice you and your wife and your daughter.
We've been. I mean, I hope we get to go back. It would be really cool. I'm starting to get requests from parts of Canada, but not Vancouver.
Well, I'll see if I can...
we'll change that.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Solid educators here. So.
Well, and plus, the company I work for now is in Seattle, so it's not that far.
Oh, that's that's a 3-hour jog.
Yeah.
A little bit longer, but.
But it's a cool train ride, so.
Yeah.
Figure something out. Cool.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks so much, Dave. We're excited to have you write for us again, and if you want to maybe work on something together.
Pick another martial art to pretend I know something about.
Yeah, what do you know, javelin? I know it's not a martial art, but maybe.
Javelin.
Javelin.
I'll just go buy one and start throwing it around and see what.
I feel like there's something about being to the point. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe you could do a music tie-in with I always compare businesses to bands, so
I talk about bands in every single Scrum class. It's
nice.
It's awesome. The same kind of thing. Yeah, and there's a lot of people from that, refugees from the music business in what we do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, let's make some music then.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Guys, congratulations again on the site and the magazine.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
Have a great week. You can find Dave on Twitter at Mr. Sungo, or check out his blog, drunkenpm.blogspot.com. He writes regularly and speaks all over the world, so you'll see him in your town anytime. Thanks, Dave.